Formula 1 arrives in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix, but one man that won't be arriving next season at Ferrari is Carlos Sainz, as he is going to be leaving the team at the end of the season. And this is all down to the contract situation that happened secretly with Ferrari at the start of the season. If you're new and you're unaware of what's been happening so far in this storyline, I'll give you a brief little overview of what's been going on. So, at the end of last season, Tom was currently driving at Ferrari with Carlos Sainz, and Ferrari decided that they did not want Tom to be a part of the team for next season, as Tom felt that a direction that Ferrari should be going in didn't match what Ferrari wanted to do, and Ferrari didn't want to follow on the footsteps of a driver being more than a team, and they decided to get rid of him. Ferrari wanted to have the ultimate duo of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in their team, and they didn't want Carlos Sainz at the team. Lewis Hamilton joined with no problems, but Max Verstappen wanted a clause in his contract which stated that he did not want either Lewis Hamilton or Tom to be his teammate for next season. Now, this is absolutely fine, apart from the fact that it included Lewis Hamilton in the clause, and of course, well, Hamilton had just joined Ferrari, so that didn't work, and no one could get into the team in time, so Ferrari were left stuck with Sainz, and they really were not happy that they had to have Sainz in the team again. Now, Ferrari denied that they were unhappy with Sainz in the team, but Tom and Verstappen have come out and spoken against Ferrari and their clause in their contracts, and also how they didn't want Sainz in the team, and it's been confirmed that that is indeed true. Carlos Sainz had decided to leave the team at the end of the season, and Sainz was ready to just terminate his contract and walk away now. But Sainz had decided actually he is going to see out his final races. As Sainz has confirmed with his agent, he is going to be the man in this situation, and he's going to carry on until the end of the season, and he is going to be the man, and he will leave on his terms. Very strong words coming out from Carlos Sainz, but a very bad time for Ferrari in a period where they don't really need all of the high drama. As we head into the race weekend, it was Ferrari that topped the times in Canada and looked favourites here at Montreal to take a victory at the Canadian Grand Prix, but that is not going to be so easy, as both Audi and McLaren are hot on their heels, and something that's also going to potentially get a little bit of spice into the Grand Prix. There is rain that is set to hit during the race, and that could definitely mix up the order, as some teams may be able to work their cars better in weather conditions. Renault are a team that have been lacking pace in the middle sector. Renault have been having issues with their chassis all season long, and that doesn't seem to be improving, and they're seriously losing time in the middle sector, unable to really allow their car to flow through the high-speed chicanes. And a team that's not really been able to actually test much of the flowing through the high-speed chicanes is Ford. A lot of problems have been arising for them in practice, and both Mick Schumacher and Callum Ilott have been unable to get on the track and get some running going, with multiple different issues, meaning they've been stuck in the garage. But as we go towards the start of the Canadian Grand Prix, who's going to come out on top and who's going to take advantage in the championship, as the final set of races is getting ever closer to concluding a new or potentially reigning world champion. Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Foxydude here. Welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 Journey. If you guys end up enjoying the video, feel free to drop it a like. You can, click the like button down below, and also subscribe. That's also there as well. If you are new to the channel and you enjoy the content that you do see. But as we get straight in towards qualifying, we're here at the Canadian Grand Prix, track that normally I do quite well on, and one that I thoroughly enjoy. But unfortunately, heading into this weekend, the car was not feeling brilliant around here, which is definitely something that I wasn't expecting. I was definitely expecting to feel a lot more competitive, and as you can see, my first flying lap was good enough only for P17, but on my second flying lap, as you can see, I've already made a catastrophic mistake, and I'm around 2 seconds off the pace. So unfortunately for us, it's not going to be a good qualifying in the slightest, and it's only going to be P17. So here we are then on the grid for the start of the Canadian Grand Prix, and we've got a bit of wet weather to come into the fray, but it's going to drive a little bit later on. So here we go then onto the grid. We've got 5 red lights, and it's lights out, and away we go for the start to the Canadian Grand Prix. A very slow and tentative start from us, and it's actually cost us a position here to one of the Ford drivers, but unfortunately for him, we've got that inside line, and we can just send it up the inside here, and as you can see, we gain ourselves a lot of places here, getting up the inside in towards the first corner, and then using the outside line to our advantage here, back end sliding just a little bit there, but we do get ourselves up initially into P12 there, but it drops to P13, but then we do get back past Verstappen there, and we're up into 12th place, so automatically there, 5 places gained off the start, and we were nearly about to make it 6. I tried to find a way past, I believe that's Hulkenberg in the Porsche, but there's just no room there to dive it up the inside. I wanted to, but obviously I need to be a little bit patient here in the early phases of this Grand Prix as we get used to these conditions. We've been driving in the dry all weekend long, and now all of a sudden we've got wet weather, so we need to adjust to that. As you can see, we're losing a little bit of time now to the cars in front, but we shouldn't be too worried about that as they're going side by side into the hairpin. That catches me out because they brake super late into the hairpin. Well, I brake super late into the hairpin. They brake really early into the hairpin, and that nearly cost us our front wing there, but luckily we were able to avoid contact. And now, as you can see, we've got the ERS and the battery flowing through here as one of the Audi cars and also one of the Red Bulls. I think that's Sam there that's fighting away with George Russell as we go into the last chicane here. It's a little bit bouncy over the chicane, but we get the move done, and we're now up into 10th place, and already we're in the points after the first lap. And now we can see if we've got any pace versus the rest of the field, or if we're in for a long and difficult afternoon. And by that looks, it might be a long and difficult afternoon, especially with understeer like that. But as we go to the grid then, and at the front of the field more likely, you can see there that Charles Leclerc got an absolutely incredible start to this Grand Prix, and we're going to go and have a look at that in just a second. But this is on board with us here, so we get a little bit of contact there in towards the first corner, but we get no damage from that, and everyone else pretty much gets through that unscathed here. But this is on board with Charles Leclerc now. The Ferraris are on the front row here, and Charles Leclerc gets an absolutely storming start here, gets to the inside of Lewis Hamilton there, and also Carlos Sainz, but he just slots himself straight down the middle there, and he leads the Canadian Grand Prix. And this is on board with Reese here now, from his perspective of that start here, so he's just going to watch Charles Leclerc just dance on through here past the 2 Ferraris. Now Reese is on the outside here of Lewis Hamilton now, heading into the first corner, but Hamilton is actually going to defend the position from Reese, so Hamilton drops from the lead down to P3 there. Reese though nearly getting his way through. Lap 2 of the Grand Prix now, and we get so close to the back there of the Red Bull, and that was a really audacious attempt there on the brakes. Not trying to go for an overtake, but just trying to get closer to that Red Bull, and unfortunately, that's cost me against the second Red Bull here, because Sam now says, thank you very much, I'll have some of that, and gets in front, and oh, there's some contact there between ourselves and Sam as the back end slides a little bit now, getting a little bit messy now on this Grand Prix, but luckily, no damage taken from any of that, so we survive for the time being, as we got someone trying to dive up our inside there, and it looks like it's my teammate Pierre Gasly trying to go for a couple of places and try and make some moves in this race, which is good for us in terms of the constructors, but at the moment none of us are in the points, so it's kind of irrelevant here. But as we're going to press onwards now down the straight here, we need to catch back up to the Red Bull of Sam and try and get some mojo going back in this Grand Prix. We dance our way through the chicanes, absolutely nail it to a T, and it's one of those where if you can absolutely send it through those chicanes, you will gain so much time on the AIs, and in this circumstance, that's exactly what we've done, and we've got past Sam for the second time in this Grand Prix. Now we need to try and pull away from him and catch up to his teammate Stoffel Van Dorn, who's chasing one of the Mercedes. As you can see, we're now on to lap 3 of the Grand Prix here. We've got Daniel Ricciardo going up against Nick De Vries now as they go into the first corner. Let's see if Ricciardo can get this move done. Bit of contact made between the 2 drivers. De Vries, though, holds it around the outside. Lando Norris now fancies getting involved in the Jaguar behind, but there's no room for Norris to try and make an attack here. And now we're going to go backwards here to our teammate Gasly, who's attacking Sam in the Red Bull as they go in towards the hairpin now. This will be crucial if Gasly can get his way past Sam. Sam, so far, not having a good Canadian Grand Prix in a Red Bull that's extremely competitive, but at the moment, it's not showcasing that. But we have seen quite a lot this season, actually, that the Red Bull doesn't seem to be working as well as the rest of the field in the wet weather conditions in terms of the top 6 teams here. They just struggle a lot. We saw that in Zandvoort when Sam dominated the Dutch Grand Prix, but as soon as the track conditions turned into intermediates, all of a sudden, that Red Bull was nowhere to be seen. But unfortunately, Gasly's now nowhere to be seen from the back of the Red Bull because he's went under pressure here into the chicane. Russell's got his way through. That's actually, is that Russell? It might be Russell. It might be Leclerc. I don't know which one it is there. One of the Audis has made a way through. I think it's George Russell there. Now he's under pressure from Verstappen here in all this to try and make a move. Verstappen, though, I think, doesn't. No, he does. He still stays in there, and Verstappen does get ahead then. So Max passes Gasly as well. So what looked promising from Pierre Gasly turns into a bit of a nightmare. But as you can see there, Van Dorn gets a little bit of a sloppy exit off the final chicane. We're going to use our battery here and go for a move on Van Dorn down the inside of the Red Bull. Get really close there as we're now going to take the high ground and the outside into turn 2. A little bit of contact made here, but now we can open up the exit, open up our steering wheel, especially in these intermediate conditions. This is where it's crucial to get that run, but Van Dorn still holds it on in there, but we just about slide our way on through ahead of Stoffel Vandoorne into 9th place, and now we've got the 2 Mercs in front of us, followed by Lando Norris here, and we're going to send it down the inside of the Merc, and that is another position in our back pocket, and that's 8th place in the Canadian Grand Prix given to us. And at the moment, we seem to be showcasing a lot of promising speed in these intermediate conditions, so that is what we're going to try and use to our advantage here as we now carry on in this Grand Prix here, going through the middle sector. This is where we lose pretty much all of the lap time versus the AIs. You gain it back in Sector 1 and Sector 3, so much so that you gain a lot more than the loss in Sector 2. However, on that occasion, you're going to lose a hell of a lot more compared to Sectors 1 and 2, especially if you're going to go and put your car across the lake. But for us, though, we stay on the circuit, even though the circuit is literally like a lake at the moment. As you can see, we go in towards the last chicane now, though, and we're going to try and get ourselves a better run here. That's a bad run, though, for Nick De Vries. I believe this is in front of us now as we go onto the straight here, powering through with some DRS enabled now. That's DRS is enabled. DRS is not enabled. ERS that's I put online because I turned my battery on. We tried to go for a move, though, on Nick De Vries as we do a classic David Croft and get things wrong. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get past him. But one lap later here, on lap 8, we're now going to try and go for it in a different area. In fact, we're going to go for it where the other Mercedes got overtaken by us. It's a super run through there, nearly getting close to the wall. In fact, maybe just brushing it ever so slightly and setting it up the inside into this complex of corners, and that's the job done. Unfortunately, though, we don't quite do the move beautifully there, and it allowed De Vries try and do a switch back on us, but luckily there was no room for him to do a switch back, and we can carry on with our Grand Prix. Now we're in 7th place. Up the road is Lando Norris, but he is quite further up the road due to the fact that we have been scrapping with the Mercs. Here's Russell now. He's trying to go past Sam here. Sam's Canadian Grand Prix continues to get worse as he now under pressure from the Audi as he goes around the outside into the hairpin. Now it's going to be a straight drag race here down this long back straight, and normally the Audis have been quicker in a straight line, but it depends now who's been saving up their battery and who's going to go for it more as they go in towards the chicane here. It's neck and neck now as they go into the chicane, but it's going to be George Russell that comes out on top, and then it's job done for him, and it's job done for these intermediate compound tyres because lap 13 has arisen and we now need to go onto the dry tyres. It doesn't look like it's time for dries, but it is time for dries. So we're going to go on to now, and we're actually going to swap the strategy a little bit here compared to the rest of the field. Now, we're going to go on to a set of the medium compound tyres. Now, the rest of the field are pretty much going to go on soft tyres here for this stint, and then they'll swap to mediums for the end, because despite the fact that we're on lap 13 of the Grand Prix, there's still a long way to go in this race. We've still got plenty of laps to do, or lap 14 actually. We've still got 21 odd laps in this race, so a long way to go, and a lot of the teams are going to go soft and then mediums. I decided to go for the medium tyres now and then go for the soft tyres later. Hopefully, if I can just try and keep the pace up in the dry, then we're able to stay close to them, get onto a set of the soft compound tyres at the end, and then all of a sudden the tyre differential will go back in my favour here. But what's also going to go in my favour is Sam here, who's not actually had the chance to pit for a set of dry tyres. That's put Lando Norris under a lot of pressure here. That's also going to put pressure for all of us, but we're going to go down the inside, but the tyres are just too cold to go for a move, and we've gone so wide there into the hairpin, but it actually turns into a very nice switchback. So, you know, who's the loser now? Actually, I was going to say it was me, but it's not, because I actually gained a place out of all that. So, I'm not the loser, but I could have gained 2 places there. I could have passed the Jaguar of Lando Norris. Yes, I know, but I didn't. We go into the last chicane now, and we're going to go through, and we've still got the DRS here on the Jaguar van. We just need to keep the pace up. Norris sets the fastest lap. We then set the fastest lap, but of course, they were all held up behind Sam. So fastest lap kind of irrelevant right now, especially in this phase of the Grand Prix. Everybody's just going to be going quicker and quicker and quicker. And unfortunately, we are just not quite able to keep up with them just yet. We don't get a good run out of the exit of the last chicane here. Everyone now doing a great job here of pressing onwards as we've got Daniel Ricciardo trying to go for it there, round the outside into the first corner. Interestingly enough, Ricciardo there is on the medium compound tyre as well. I thought there were more drivers on the softs there, but interestingly, he wasn't. He was on the medium, so I got a little bit stuffed in all of that now as we carry on here to lap 16 of the Grand Prix now. And again, you can see here, we're just not quite comfortable at the moment. The car felt a lot better when we were in the wet conditions. Here in the dry, it's not good enough at the moment, and that's an easy overtake for Ricciardo, and I decided not to fight that one because I need DRS. Unfortunately, during my battle with Ricciardo, I lost DRS with Lando Norris. Not because I was fighting side by side with Daniel Ricciardo, but crucially, just because I wasn't quick enough to get up to the back of Norris. So what I've decided to do now is just allow Daniel Ricciardo to go through and try if there's any way to hold on to the back of him and use him to close up the back of Lando Norris as Reese here tries to go for a move on Carlos Sainz into the last chicane, but it doesn't work for Reese through the last chicane, so he's going to have to hold on for a different opportunity, and that's into turn 1. Down the inside he goes on Carlos Sainz. Of course, we now know that Carlos Sainz won't be in that Ferrari next season, so that's going to be rough for him as we go on to lap 23 of the Grand Prix, and there's a little bit of contact there with one of the barriers there as we go through towards the end of lap 25. Is that going to give us some front wing damage later on this Grand Prix? That's not going to go too, but that's going to give us some front wing damage. We've cost ourselves crucially in this Grand Prix. Hamilton now gets himself in front of us as we now tap the back of Lewis Hamilton here, and it's all gone horribly wrong, and it goes even worse because we've tapped our front wing again with the understeer coming from the car. Now, we're in a bit of a fortunate position here. We were going to pit this lap anyway for a new set of tyres, but that has really cost us there. We just touched the front wing, and even though it didn't say that we got damage, it turns out that we actually did, and it meant that when we then went through the second high-speed chicane towards the hairpin, I didn't have as much grip that I thought I would have because I wasn't expecting the understeer to be there, and obviously, unfortunately, we've broken our front wing, which is costly for our Grand Prix because the rest of the field are coming in for a set of tyres, but annoyingly for us, I now want to change my front wing. So the soft tyres that I had going on, which was the plan to switch the strategy versus the AIs, is, well, virtually out the window now because I'm not in DRS with them anymore, and I don't have a front wing, and I've lost all that time, and now I've got the Mercedes of De Vries right behind me to pretty much compound my misery. So lap 26 of the Grand Prix, we are now in P7, but it's not going to stay that way for long because we get onto the exit of the hairpin here, and De Vries is in prime position to go for an attack here with the DRS, and he's too close for me to even consider draining the battery and going for a defensive maneuver here. So De Vries now goes to the inside. I then cover that one off and take the normal racing line through there. So that's clever from us, but unfortunately our cleverness is not going to quite pay off. I'll give De Vries a hard time to pass us, but eventually Nick De Vries does get past us as we now make our way through in towards turn 2 to try and get onto the back of De Vries, and that's a little bit of a tank slapper through there, basically just going to show how undrivable the car's been this weekend. It's really not been hooked up yet. Lap 27, though, we're on board with Lando Norris. He's trying to go for a move here on Lewis Hamilton, or Carlos Sainz, sorry, into the last chicane. That's not worked, though. What has worked out is Daniel Ricciardo getting an opportunity to go for that move now. He's going towards the first corner here. Can Ricciardo go for it into the first corner? No, but unfortunately for Norris, he's locked up there. Goes a little bit wide into the first corner, and Daniel Ricciardo is cheering in that helmet, and I'm pretty sure I just saw an Australian flag there, so he'll be celebrating that one as we're on board here with the two teammates of the other two that were fighting earlier. Obviously, me and De Vries were having a battle. This is Perez and Gasly having a battle with Sam right behind them as they go into the second chicane here, or the first chicane actually, on this circuit here. Gasly holding off Sergio Perez. He's going to try again, though, into the last chicane to hold off Sergio Perez there, and Sergio does enough to get past Pierre Gasly, but on this occasion, though, it's going to be some DRS fighting going on here. Sam now trying to find a way through on Gasly. He gets past Gasly. What about Sergio Perez into the first corner? He's done a good job then to hold his nose in there, and he's done a great job to get back past Sergio Perez there. So Sam there making advantage, or taking advantage of what Gasly and also Perez are up to. Now they've got one of the four drivers of Mick Schumacher on the back of them now as they go into the chicane here. Good effort from all of them. Lap 32 of the Grand Prix now. We're still on the back of De Vries here, trying to get the gap down and try and find a way through in towards DRS range and go for a move here. But annoyingly, what you would have seen on the mini-map when we went through the hairpin, the other drivers that were in front of us, you could see them going for the chicane there. They're not that far in front. only if I didn't damage my wing, we could have been in a much stronger position in this race. But we get past Nick de Vries into the chicane and promote ourselves up into 7th place now in this Grand Prix. And now we can try and push to the end and hold position here in 7th place if possible. But onto the end now of lap 33 here, and that is looking to be a little bit harder than I would have expected here, because the soft tyres are dropping off now in this race. Of course, I wanted to stay out about 1 or 2 laps longer on my mediums to just allow the soft to go flat out to the end here. But unfortunately, by pitting early to get the front wing changed and a set of softs here, we're now struggling and we're now trying to defend very hard this P7 versus de Vries here. We just about hold on there. In towards turn 3 and 4 we go with our beautiful Renault car here as we now blast through now onto lap 34, the end of the lap now. Back in DRS section again as we now press onwards in this Grand Prix. Let's see if we've got enough in hand to hold off de Vries into the chicane. Just about got enough through there, but we go super wide though, braking a little bit too late through there. That's given de Vries now a great chance here to go for a move round the outside of the first corner. De Vries tries to go for it. We'll fend this one off as we go into the outside of turn 2. De Vries holds his line in there, but we just about have enough getting that high ground through turn 2 to make the move stick here. But as you can see, Rhys has won the Grand Prix. There's still no names on. As we carry on now into the last chicane here, we're dumping the battery, giving it everything now. De Vries gets a beautiful exit. This time we can't cover him off. De Vries just about gets to the line in front of us there, but we just couldn't cover off that exit that we did. Every single lap that de Vries went for a move, he always tried to go for that one line at the inside, and on the final lap, he finally got his nose in. I couldn't cover it off anymore, and he takes a position, and annoyingly, that is not a good weekend for us. Rhys, though, is the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix. He managed to beat Charles Leclerc by 0.6 of a second in the end. So despite Leclerc jumping the 2 Ferraris off the start, it didn't equate to anything because he actually lost out to Rhys. Carlos Sainz finishes in 3rd ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, completing a strong weekend for McLaren in 4th. Lando Norris finishes the race in 5th, with Lewis Hamilton completing the race in 6th for Ferrari. Nick de Vries finishes in 7th, just beating us by 11/100ths of a second. Van Dorn comes across the line in 9th, and Max Verstappen rounds out the top 10, with Sam picking up the fastest lap, but unfortunately he did not have a good weekend and was outside of the top 10. Speaking of the drivers outside of the top 10, here they are. Sam is in 11th place, that's where he finishes the Grand Prix, with George Russell in P12 for Audi. Sergio Perez finishes in front of Pierre Gasly in 13th place, Gasly down in 14th. It's the 2 Fords for next with Mick Schumacher and Callum Ilott. Then it's the 2 Aston Martins of Oscar Piastri and Robert Schwartzman. And then it's the 2 Porsches of Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hülkenberg. But unfortunately for both Porsche cars, they actually DNF'd from this Grand Prix. So it was an awful weekend for Porsche and a lot of work for them to do moving forwards. As we obviously said, Sam picked up that fastest lap at 1:04.908. And then in terms of the Drivers' Championship now, the Drivers' Championship has now changed. We have been leading the Drivers' Championship for a very, very long time. But unfortunately, our time at the top is currently done and dusted. And annoyingly for me, that was coming. We were expecting to lose the lead in the Drivers' Championship. I thought we'd lose it a lot earlier in the season, but unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we've been able to keep hold of the lead for so long. But unfortunately, 2 tough races in a row now have really cost us. Of course, the DNF in Belgium and here in Canada, where we obviously damaged our front wing. Leclerc, though, is now on 201 points, and he is 6 points clear of Rhys at the top of the championship. And this is actually really crucial, because Rhys and Leclerc were separated by 0.6 of a second across the line. Rhys would have had to have overtaken Leclerc at some point in this Grand Prix, meaning that that's a massive, massive boost for Rhys and his aspirations of winning the Drivers' Championship and defending his Drivers' Championship. Because if Leclerc won here today, then that's a massive swing in the championship of like 14 points, swinging it either way. So big, big result for Rhys, and he moves in front of us as well. We're on 194 points. We are still in the championship fight. We're just now on the back foot and need 2 really strong races. Lando Norris is 4th in the championship with 163 points. Sam is next with 139 points. Lewis Hamilton is 6th in the championship with 128 points. Carlos Sainz is on 98 points. Stoffel Van Dorn is on 87 points. Max Verstappen is now on 59 points and George Russell is 10th with 57 points. The next event is the Formula 1 United States Grand Prix. Looking then at the Constructors' Championship, and the Constructors has also flipped on its head. McLaren now leads the Constructors' Championship on 261 points. Once again, we as a Team Renault have been at the top of the Constructors for a very long time, but as with the Drivers' Championship, we were expected to fall away, but we managed to hold on for as long as we possibly could. And unfortunately, that time is now over, but we've still got a chance to claim it back later in the season. Audi are on 258 points with ourselves on 248 points. Red Bull are fourth in the championship on 226 points. Ferrari also have 226 points with Jaguar on 222 points. That means that the top 6 in the Constructors' Championship are separated by just 39 points. If one of those teams, if Jaguar picks up a 1-2 finish in the next race and the other teams struggle to score points, Jaguar could go from 6th to the top of the Constructors in one race. It's that close. Mercedes are sitting pretty in 7th with 62 points. Ford have got 21 points, Aston Martin have got 2 points, and Porsche have just 1. But that is it for the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's get into the post-race notebook, see how the teams and drivers react after today's Canadian Grand Prix. Taking a look at the post-race notebook, and it was Reese that beat Charles Leclerc to victory here at the Canadian Grand Prix to boost his chances of defending his driver's title. Of course, Reese, the reigning champion, was currently looking to try and close the gap between himself and Tom in the championship. He now goes in front of Tom in the championship, but crucially, by beating Leclerc here today, means he is now just 6 points behind Charles in the championship. Sainz claims P3 as the other championship contender. Tom only finishes in P8. And let's go and have a look then at what some of the drivers had to say. Charles Leclerc was gutted to miss out on an opportunity at winning the Canadian Grand Prix. However, he felt like he just lacked a lot of pace in the dry, and it cost him a lot of performance. And that was the same with Tom as well. After Tom had a very strong Canadian Grand Prix up until it went to the dry tyre conditions, Tom felt that he's been pushing too hard with his Renault to keep up with the front runners. He believes this is the core reason why he's been making crucial mistakes at a crucial point in the championship. Tom, of course, crashed out of the Belgian Grand Prix last weekend, and this weekend managed to damage his front wing and cost himself a chance of fighting the front runners. But Tom states that the Renault car is just so poor that he's having to drive it to a point where it's overdoing it, and he's just hoping that it pays off. And unfortunately, it really isn't paying off. And Sam was left gutted as well in this Grand Prix after another difficult race weekend meant that his championship aspirations are all but over now, and in fact he is no longer in contention to win the championship. And it's been a very difficult season for Sam and for Red Bull. They've been struggling from the start of the season, then they had a very strong period mid-season, but unfortunately some more rough races have meant that their championship is now well and truly over, and their focus now has got to be on finishing this season on the high before transferring to next season. But that is going to be it, guys, for the Canadian Grand Prix. We will see you guys next time around for the US Grand Prix, as it's clearly becoming now a three-way fight for the Formula 1 World Championship. Let's see how it pans out next time. For now, I'm out. Take care all.